Yeah, groovy, Fela Kuti-esque groovy.
He definitely is groovy, but he's from Ghana.
Yeah. On the Philips label, right?
On the Philips, yeah. And it's just one of those artists where you can never be wrong. I think all his albums are worth collecting. I even thought I found one that was never found before, but that was his son. It was Tyler Jr.
Mm-hmm.
That was also quite good. But I collect like this. This is not even the best one, but that was the one I had here in the box today. I will definitely go back to more of his stuff. I love his stuff.
Nice one. Stunty, Africa again, huh?
Mm-hmm.
You know this artist, I guess?
I know the artist. I don't remember that album specifically though, but I mean, he has quite a few, right, Thomas?
Yeah, I would say he has 6 or 7 good albums, and they're all good. So I can't remember what track is on what album as well. So he's always high quality.
Yeah, but he has more than he has quite other albums as well.
Yeah, but the good ones.
Yeah.
So 5, 6 good ones. You know the story, Stunty. You are the guy who always says exception is nurse with wound. That you are not into being a completionist. That you just figure out which are the ones to get and to collect, right?
Yeah, and even with Nurse's Wound, it's there's stuff that I don't need to, like reissues of records I already have. If they have bonus tracks, if I like them, yeah. If I don't love them, then I can live without it.
Yeah, but that's an interesting question, Stunty. Do you consider bonus tracks or different takes as part of the oeuvre?
Yeah, sure.
You do?
Yeah, sure. It depends. For example,
sure, it depends. So decide now.
Yeah, no, but sure, it depends in the sense that I'll give you an example if I can find it. Like Coil's most famous album, Love Secret Domain.
Yeah.
It was reissued 2 years ago as for the first time officially 30th anniversary. It was originally released on CD and LP, a single LP. The LP was missing 2 tracks from the CD, or maybe 3. Not necessarily not the best one in my opinion, but so in the US, a company did a reissue, a double LP with the complete track listing of the CD. In Europe, in Austria, Russia, because it's a Russian label that has moved to Austria since the war, they did a deluxe 3 LP record, 1 album and a half, 3 sides for the original album complete, and 1.5 and 3 sides of bonus outtakes. I found that these outtakes were not good, since this was an official album that was an official album of outtakes of Love Secret Domain that was already officially released in the 90s. So they found additional stuff that I call cutting floor material, like the stuff that was like, oh, this is not for publication, and I thought it diminishes the record. So even if it's more, I don't want that because it's not better.
Yeah, because that's why I asked. Sometimes I personally get a little sick with never released songs and outtakes on reissues.
I'm very excited about it if it's an artist I love, but then I will check if it's good. Great. If it's not good, then
not.
Yeah.
Thomas, you're showing the record and the label.
I'll just show the label here.
Sorry for keep you waiting.
So it's from 1978.
Yeah, this Philips label is generally, no matter which country, usually those Philips records are amazing, really, 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 really good.
Yeah, his records always sound good. It's difficult to find them in good condition, but
that's is my thinking too, Jefferson. There is sometimes or quite often a reason why they haven't been released in the first time. Exactly. Yeah. That was my thinking with the question. Dante, are you prepared, or shall Thomas put another record on, or are you ready to go with a reaction or something different?
I'm kind of ready, yeah.
Kind of ready. Okay, let's see what it means when Stunty says he's kind of ready. Okay, I can live with it. Wonderful jacket.
This is a record I just got. I haven't even listened to it yet. I've listened to it online before. This is from a record from Uganda. From Hakuna Kulala.
Okay, question, Stunty. Really from Uganda or an artist from Uganda?
An artist from Uganda on a label from Uganda.
Okay, that's great. Cool.
It's new music from today, which is why it's interesting to me to hear what's going on there. On this track, you could say this could come from anywhere in the world, but there is a couple of things that is from there, like the vocal samples in the background, and the rhythm is a variation on a few things, but that is also native to there. I like how this is an experiment. They only did 100 copies of that.
Wow.
On vinyl. You can find it digitally, but if you want it on vinyl, at least
How
they
did
made
you get aware of this record, Stunty? Where did you find it?
It cost me a little money because I didn't get it when it was released because it sold out immediately.
Okay.
I think I paid like $40 for it, which is still decent. And it's well, I'm subscribed to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of.
I've seen it. I've seen it when we met, and you came 2 hours too late for breakfast. Okay, Hit Wombat did something. I really want to get into it in general, and then of course Stunty will answer. We do that on the German streams too. So if you have a question to Stunty or Thomas or to me or to us all, just do so. I will see that, and then it doesn't mean that we do it within a minute or two, but I will get questions to us or to a specific person on stream, and then we will of course try to answer them as good as you want. So feel free to ask any questions you want to hear about or want to get an answer. Stanti, can you generally find African records well in France, or are there more available there? How is the situation in France when it comes to Africa?
France is probably one of the countries where it's the easiest, or easy. It doesn't mean
easy. Easy is a wrong word in a way when it comes to African records, right?
It's probably one of the countries where you stand the biggest chance of finding stuff. I would say Portugal is pretty good. Belgium is pretty good. Italy to a certain degree. Greece can be pretty good, because you have to remember. So I wanted to play this also because Thomas just played an African record from 40 years ago, right? About 40, 50. How old was that record, Thomas?
It was from 78. It was
78, so
36 years old.
Yeah. So it's easy for us to have this monolithic picture of Africa and African art. You have all these labels also who cater to our own biases about, the good savage, the people who wear only like who are basically almost naked. The thing is that Africa is Egypt, is Maghreb, is the Little Horn. It's such a big place. There are so many different cultures that are so different, and also for some amazing reason, Africa also lives in 2024 at the same time as we do. So sure, it's a poorer continent money-wise. Doesn't mean they don't have access to stuff we do have access to by different or similar means. I like records like that reminds us constantly that we live in a global world, and the fact that they are from Africa will not necessarily be the sole, the main thing in their identity. It will be part of their identity, but we also live in a global world where everyone has a smartphone. Not everyone, but a lot of people have. Less maybe in Africa, but still, like Hind, who is watching us here. She is watching us from a computer, I'm sure, or
probably from a cell phone in Uganda.
Yeah, see, so and technology is not just for communication; it's also for creating, etc. So, I just find it healthy, especially when the music is interesting or good or to your liking,
which is quite often is, right? They have amazing music over there.
Yeah.
Also nowadays. I totally.
Yeah, but you see, but even saying that they make amazing music is it's a generalization. And that's what we do, and that's what I like it when we manage to avoid that. But and myself, I'm certainly guilty of that every now and then, if not more.
Yeah. Thomas, just a quick step back to the question from Hit Wombat. Also, he asked Stanti, but I would be interested in your opinion too. Where do you think you can generally find African music in a good manner? France, or do you have other experiences? Where did you get most of your quite impressive African collection or collection of African records and music?
When I go to shops, I think the best one are in Paris and in France. And I have always passed by Superfly Records in Paris too. They have a good collection of African records, and they do reissue some themselves of the really, really good rarities.
That shop Thomas is talking about is a fairly new shop. It's been around for like 12-15 years. It was started by 3 record diggers, but it's kind of a shop that is specialized in rare groove, African jazz, spiritual jazz. I think the best barometer for a country, of course, countries that have colonial past will have African records, but also metropoles, international metropoles. So obviously it will be Paris, New York, and London. But less London, because you just have to think what's the diaspora, and of course they bring their music with, and it's a back and forth. But I think that best barometer would not necessarily be a specialized shop, but if you go to the flea market, and it's true to what Thomas is correct. If you go to the flea markets in Paris, where they just bring what they have and not what people. It's not catered as a specialist shop. You will find a lot of African records in the flea market around Paris.
Okay, interesting.
Not necessarily like the top. Like you won't find like you will find some Fela Kuti because he had such a large discography, but you won't find like these Zamrock records that everyone wants. But you will find a lot of stuff that you've never heard about that might not even be good, like everywhere, but you will find a lot.
Hello, Daniel. Nice decision. Great that you join us, at least for 15 minutes. Thomas.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Stunty. You want to say something?
No, it's just, like they say everyone can be famous for 15 minutes, but maybe we can be famous for 15 people here. So
maybe we can. So Hit Wombat already booked a flight to Paris. Thomas, thanks for the insights. Do you have a second record, or was that it for today?
No, I have one more record ready for tonight, and we move a little bit south to South Africa.
South Africa, right?
Yeah. Yeah, again, I think for me, a 7-inch that has its own personality. It's from 1975, from a band who I think they made like 4 singles.
Okay, that's all.
And this is number 2. The band is called Tula, and the track is called Let's Swim. It's and both A and B side are good on this. This is a 7-inch. They only made a 7-inch and 1 12-inch.
Thomas, you are quite heavy on the 7 inches. When I remember last stream today, second record again, a 7-inch. Okay.
Yeah, I remember last time you said I was not heavy on 7 inches, but today I was like thinking, okay, I look a little bit into the 7 inches. So I found a good pile of stuff here.
Ah, you found a pile of 7 inches once more.
Yeah, but I was thinking maybe I would put some up on the OBC because we have never put it up 7 inches. So
we have never ever put up a 7 inches. You put up an amazing lot of Alice Cooper though. So every Alice Cooper fan right now is quite invited to have a look at it. You see, amazing.
So I find some here that I would like to sell, but some that are rarities that I will put some of them up on the OPC.
Nice. Let's try 7 inches.
Yeah, let's try to.
Stunty, you and 7 inches.
Yeah.
Friendship for life? No, right? It's not.
No. Yes. It's just. I
Just
prefer 12 inches, but like if it exists on 7-inch only, and I like the music, then I mean, it's love as well.
It's just about the music for you, right? Yeah.
It's about the music and the fact that it's on vinyl.
I love
the
that.
fact that it's a 7-inch. I mean, I think also over time. I mean, there are people who love 7 inches from the get-go. I wasn't like that because, especially when you're a DJ, in the 90s at least. I mean, if you're a DJ who plays like in bars and you play like garage rock and rock and roll, sure, then it will be 7 inches. Same with reggae, dub, etc. If you play techno, house, stuff like that, records that also are tools that you play together, then
12.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I have some stuff on 7-inch, but it's you have less potential there.
Stunty, last week, when I remember correctly, the next day after the stream, you had a little gig in Stockholm. How was it?
It was really good. It was really good. I basically, it's a quite big venue outdoors that has an half indoor thing, and so when they were over with the full outdoor thing, I was playing in the indoor, so I was in charge of bringing the people. I had which is the most difficult, the most annoying. You don't already have the full crowd like that are already. And I was supposed to play the last hour and have that, but the kids before me, they were like, "Can you play before?" And I was like, "Okay, I don't care. I'll play whenever. Like it's fine." And they were very happy to have the good spot. But I did good. It took me 25 minutes, but after 25 minutes, the people were there. I didn't get to play.
You didn't. Yeah, no. That would have been my next question. You didn't.
No, but I was actually pretty close to. If I had like 30 minutes more, where I left, I was pretty much there already in a full ecstatic, hedonistic place. But if you want, I can still play the track for you.
Yes. I think it's about time now. Yes. Now that you build it up in the last stream. And you didn't play it in Stockholm, so let's play it here. If not here, where can you play it? Will we be alone in 5 minutes?
We might be, because it's pretty intense, huh? But
okay. You can play that anytime in any club. I knew it must be. A broken painkiller from not bad at all. Okay, first thought, Stanti. At the end of the 80s in Ratingerhof in Düsseldorf, you could play that song at any time and people would freak out. Not kidding.
But you hear, they would freak out, huh?
But in a positive way. It has, for me, it has a strong 80s vibe.
Well, it has a Chicago vibe. It has an 80s or even it has a loft party vibe, but it's so grungy, so industrial in the sound. But you still have, the thing is, you have the claps, you have the reverb on it, you have the air in them that kind of makes you realize the space and okay, this is a dance track, but you get kind of mangled by the sheer amount of sound together. It's not necessarily many sounds. It's but
it's not a wall of sound. It's not a wall of I think.
If I play it at the right volume,
it
becomes. It's kind of almost puzzling. Now you get it like that. There's still light, as someone, Mike Tomlin was saying, it's maybe early in the day for it, for sure. And this is because.
And the one question from Selvia I really like. It's an interesting question. I know that stamp, Stanti. Why do I?
So the stamp is a stamp. The label is printed plus and added. It's the label Diagonal from what's his name? The name will come back. But this is a Japanese guy who usually Koei Matsunaga with another guy called Masayuki Imanishi. Koei Matsunaga is mostly known for experimental electronic music, not for straight-up dance music, which this is, even if it's kind of grungy for dance music. But
Selga is asking if there is a possibility that someone could hear a DJ mix from you. Are there any downloads or stuff like that, or can you provide that?
Maybe I could. I had quite a few, and after a while, you you clean shop a little bit. But I thought that I might do before Den Bosch. I think I will do a sort of marathon DJ set.
Okay, cool.
To finance the
finance Den Bosch. Yeah, good idea. Good idea.
It could be fun.
It will be fun for sure.
Yeah.
Thomas, would that be a track you could play on your gigs in Copenhagen and surroundings?
Yeah, I would say I think you need to find the right time to do it like Stanley. Yeah. You don't start with a track like this. Is 2:30 in the morning. You have the right audience for this. But definitely you can play that.
People need to have already kind of forgotten about themselves when you play that track. They have to have surrendered to
See, that's what I meant.
Nice.
Because at the end of the 80s in Düsseldorf, we already had forgotten about ourselves. 24/7.
Yeah, Heat Wombat is saying that he thinks Berlin would be my city. I was resident at Berghain in Berlin, so the very first time I ever went to Berlin was to play at Berghain as a DJ. So yes, and that was fun. That was really fun.
Thomas, what can you set against? Not against it, right? That would be stupid.
I would say like nothing.
Nothing, right?
But I found a nice record. I found an extra copy of that. I'll put on the OPC, and I think you should listen to this.
Thomas, is this, and Stunty probably knows the name of the label, is this Portuguese label with the small editions and the hand-painted jackets?
Yeah.
This, right, Stunty?
Principe.
Yeah. They have amazing stuff out there, yeah.
It's probably the most consistent dance music label in the past 15 years. Yeah. They've started in about, I think the first release was from 2011 or 12. They have about 50, 60 releases now. I think there's at least 15, 20 worth having, which is a lot for that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So Portugal, that goes back to the question about where to find African records. Portugal had a colony in Africa, Angola. So this is made by the the third, fourth generation of Angolese immigrants, or not immigrants because they were like whatever. So this is influenced by the sounds, the drums, and the rhythms of Angola, but not just them, but also how they made music in Portugal when they arrived, which, well, they played in they lived in the slums. They lived outside of the city in ghettos, like favelas almost often. So you can imagine what kind of instruments they had, like a lot of drums, and drums handmade with whatever you had. So which is why you also have this kind of like not industrial but like urban metallic aspect rather than the skin that we're used to with drums in Africa.
Oh, this is an amazing record. And again, this handmade jackets with the paintings, wonderful.
But who's the artist on this one, Thomas?
I think you say Nadia, Nadia.
Yeah, that's her album. She had an EP that was fantastic last year. Yeah, she has a 7-inch, a 12-inch, and an album. The biggest name on Principe is called DJ Niga Fox, and Warp. I think it was in 2013. They did a series of 3 EPs where they tried to cash in on that kind of scene and vibe, and they didn't get the best tracks. Let's put it that way.
Also, and as you said, Santi, this label and the recordings and records of this label are really, really well made, wonderful music, perfect choice of doing today's music. Really great stuff.
And I just put it up on the OBC just before we started this stream, so
okay.
Sell one of my 2 copies.
So most of these releases are still affordable, but some, I mean, even when they do 500 copies, it's not rare that these records you still have to pay like 40, 50, 60 bucks for them. Some even go.
Sometimes they even do way less. I remember I have quite a couple of them, and they. Yeah.
As I said, like you will still be able to find cheap ones on the label. The biggest and classic releases, some like people ask for money for these now. So because they are also for a DJ, they are wonder, because as you can hear, like stuff that we discussed before with Thomas, it's a lot of percussions and some melodies on synthesizer, but it's very crude arrangements often, which means again there's a lot of room, and most often the rhythms are not 4 to the floor, which means they are very fun to mix with something more traditional because they will complement each other pretty well.
No Pflegefall and not self-made from Thomas. Those jackets are self-made. They are hand-painted usually.
So what they do basically is they take a white jacket and they make a sort of, it's not like a silk screen. They just carve out of a cardboard a form and then they paint it on it. So each one is unique, but each one of one release, it's not made with open hand.
No, exactly. But a great idea, very well made. And even when you have them and go over them, you can feel that it's really color and not printed. Yeah.
It's basically Taylorism without electricity.
Yeah. Thomas, ready again, or shall we take over to Stunty?
I can always play a track.
Okay, give us one.
This one, when it came out in 1989, it only came out as a cassette.
Okay.
But it was like a huge success. So they sold 200,000 cassettes.
No,
that's the truth.
Wow, that's a lot.
That's a lot, yeah.
You have to find 200,000 cassettes.
Yeah, so in 1991, they made an album out of it. It's from Mali.
Mali, okay.
Mali.
Seguimos kumanaka yo bafaji kumanaka yo kerwono India madeni andi antamanyoni alimane bonya ikanonoya kana konoro kumado fanaramba Andia asebera atamaja esegingale ne faye lumma ne tesebo isebete jarabi mainoni dugu bomma tesebo alisa jarabi mananoni samana ne tesebo isebete jarabi mai wiyala Andia asebera atamaja esegingale ne faye lumma ne tesebo isebete jarabi mainoni dibi bomma tesebo alisa jarabi mananoni samana ne tesebo isebete jarabi mai wiyala dugu bombay komi Abidjan dugu bombay komi Bamako dugu bombay komi Conakry ini kamo nyona ini janya moye kelele ikani konoro kumado fanada Andia atamaja esigingoi Andia mo balu strati kanu mo shamandu Andia atamaja esigingoi
Nice one for sure.
Yeah, I think there was a remake of it, like a dance version a few years ago that made it come back in focus again. But this is the original from 1989, but 1991 one. And it's true that it's 200,000 copies plus bootlegs. So
Crazy. That's really crazy.
she was like number one in Mali, and I think she's still like a big star there.
Ah, look, remember, I think it was last week, the Schwarzdreher asked about a record store in Copenhagen, Thomas, and he was quite fine with your advice and recommendation, and he found a Trentemöller. Makes sense in a way.
Trentemöller is
and Hin says, "Thank you, Thomas, for playing this one."
Hey, you're welcome.
Thomas, Stanti, that was a great one, wasn't it?
Yeah, it reminds me. I almost wanted to play a specific track I got this week, the cheap African record, but I'll play it on my Friday stream first.
So we had second choice here. Okay, good to know. Good to know.
Here is different. Here is more like after reflection.
Okay.
Or not always. Sometimes it's just spontaneous. But it's like next track I queued. It's only because Thomas was playing 7-inch, and I thought like, 7-inch. Oh, this one I haven't played in some time, and it's a cool record from a band that people like, but maybe don't know about this.
not so sure about this one. Sylvia?
Just cool, like whimsical, psychedelic, psych music, focus group and broadcast. One of the very few records broadcast is featured on that is not on Warp, and and it reminded me of one thing also. Like, was it like last week or 2 weeks ago? I played this low res records with that cover of Caravan jukebox series. Well, 7 inches. Usually, a lot of labels they do series, which is kind of something cool. Doesn't mean like this series. This label Ghostbox, they do series of I think 6, and then they change the design. But there's always this kind of, like, you see, hi-fi, radio, TV elsewhere, like for a jukebox. So I think the 7-inch is something that we didn't talk about. It's as Thomas, I'm sure, noticed when he was looking at this. 7 inches are basically a great field of investigation for designers.
Okay.
Like design on 7-inch, because of the limited surface and also the fact that it was throwaway more than LPs. So there's less control, less scrutiny. So if a good designer was offered the chance to do artwork on 7 inches, that was usually very often a way to go wild a little bit, to test concepts. As I was saying, series, so to do variations on one thing and to be able to publish all of that, to have it in print. And when you like object as well, and we like vinyl, it's for several reasons, including the objects. 7 inches that are part of a label, part of a series, there's always like a kind of an appeal. You got one, you're gonna be wanting to check the other ones, even if it's not music that is interesting to you. What do you think, Thomas?
Yeah, I think the same. You check everything on that label, or especially when it's like a small series, when it's less than 10 releases. I want to dig in to find out what is the other ones.
That's
often
the whole idea. So.
Often you find good stuff on those labels.
Okay, now let's get back from our private exorcism. Thomas, what 7-inch do you have prepared for us?
You want a 7-inch?
Whatever you
I have a 7-inch here from Barbados.
From Barbados, okay.
Yeah. We take that one. It's a different style.
that as a positive flow for sure. It only exists as a 7-inch, Thomas?
As I remember, it only exists as a 7-inch. They made 2 albums, but this is not on the album. As I remember, I had one of the albums, but I sold it at some point. They called the Blue Rhythm Combo.
Okay.
And it's if you hear the other side, you'll know mostly how the music sounds like. I'll just play a little bit so you.
Yeah, sure.
Do you like good music? That's bad. Good music. Just as long as it's swinging. Oh yeah.
You choose the right track for the long play.
Yeah. It doesn't see which one is the A and B side, so it's probably the B side I played first.
That's for sure. Yeah.
No, those tracks are difficult to find, and but I think it'll be fun to see if we have customers for those things. So this is one I'll put up. It's from 1973.
I can imagine that there are a lot of people nowadays who dig this. And my question is, Thomas, how did you get aware of it? I mean, this is not Led Zeppelin 2, right? How do you find this stuff?
This one and the one I played earlier, those two are found in London.
Oh, okay. So years ago or recently?
Years ago, but it's a shop called Yo-Yo Records where you find stuff like those.
Stunty, when you go to a record store, you also dig the 7 inches, or do you say no? I concentrate on the long players.
It depends on the shop. It depends why I go to that shop. If it's a place I don't know, if it's a shop I don't know, I will check everything, including the 7 inches. But considering your previous question, it's actually a good one in the sense it's true that it's usually not where I will have my main focus. But I mean, if it's a reggae shop, of course I will dig the 7 inches. If it's a shop that happens to have some 7 inches, but that is like a world music, like I don't know, like a maybe it depends on the time. But I mean, I have my ultimate want list of like 10, 12 records where there's 3 7 inches on that one. But one is industrial, one is North African, and one is jazz. So it depends.
Yes, but when it comes to industrial 7-inch, not that common. Or am I
no, there's a lot. 7-inch in industrial is extremely common. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So not the 12-inch, the 7-inch.
Yeah, industrial has LPs, 7 inches, like a lot of 7 inches. Unfortunately, because sometimes these tracks you'd want them, like especially in drone industrial, like stuff like Organum, Mirror.
But Organum, you're right.
Organum has a lot, and it's just he loves the format. But I have something a bit.
Manfred got his rarest 7 inches from France and the Netherlands.
Yeah, but he's not telling us what it is, so it's
also
a little bit.
What did you expect?
No, sometimes he shares.
Yes, he shares quite often.
Yeah. So this one is. You guys tell me what you think it is.
Okay. have an idea what it is.
So, Michael, first, where do you think this is from?
You know, when I was a little boy, and I'm talking now, really little boy, mid-70s, we drove to Italy. And at the beach, there always came some artists, those one-man bands with the drum on the back and harmonica and stuff like that. They sounded a little bit like that when they played.
Okay, and you, Thomas,
know
where do you? I know. Where do you think this was from?
I would guess it was from Ireland, but it might be Norway.
So this is a Japanese band of classical medieval music playing folk music on this album from Europe, and in this case, Italy, Michael.
See?
With Japanese instruments.
Okay, nice. Because my first take would have been Don Camillo and Pepone, but I'm not sure that you know Don Camillo and Pepone.
I know, of course. Come
Okay.
on. Well, yeah. But see, you got a little bit of Revolver Beatles thing going on the cover.
Yeah.
The band is called Danceries.
Mhm.
And you got tracks from Italy, Japan, France, Korea, Spain, Okinawa, Italy, France, etc.
So the songs, as they are from very different countries, are all quite different, or does it go through with the sound of it in general?
They're quite different, but like there's a sort of homogeneity. Like Masahiko Sato is arranging most of them. He's a great Japanese jazz musician. He's barely credited on this, but so this is Dancerie here. It's a Japanese record, by the way. It's their second album from 81, something like that. 81, yeah. And they call themselves Groupe de musique ancienne d'Europe et du Japon. A group of...
Is it a recent album, Stunty? Sorry for...
1981.
1981, okay. Okay, not a recent.
And yeah, it's on Denon, so you got a little bit of a Denon plug thing, and
but it's still nice that it comes with this album, right?
Yeah.
It wouldn't if it wouldn't be there. Very interesting.
And I don't have the OB. I remember buying this for $5 25 years ago. I was like, "What is this?" And I was not sure if I liked it, but I was sure I was intrigued by it, so I took it.
Sure, of course.
It took me a little while to realize what it was, but which is kind of fun in a way.
That was an amazing piece of art. Thanks for sharing that one. Thomas.
I just saw somebody already saw what I put on one of the record players here.
Why not? We don't make a secret about it.
And this is a weird track because it's a bit like if I was a collector of psych rock, this is like going really deep, I would say.
Okay.
In the collection, but I'll play a little bit. We can talk about it after.
Just a second, Thomas.
Yeah.
because we are like record collectors and stupid people like that. Maybe it's very common for you guys, but this was released on Denon. This is the only record where I have an inner sleeve like that.
The material is common, but the shape is really
shape.
yeah.
The
The
fact
shape
that you have like
yeah.
a fold over for this.
And I love this fold over. We all know why, right?
Yeah.
I love this fold over. This is amazing.
I just thought I would share because it's a
Yeah,
little
yeah.
unusual.
Yeah, that's really cool. Really cool.
A veces lo que más se anhela nunca se puede alcanzar. La vida es un largo camino, muy difícil de lograr. No triunfas jamás, no te oirás por envidia de un demás. El amor te dejará al fracasar. Si piensas comenzar de nuevo, la espalda te brindará. La vida es un largo camino que jamás podré alcanzar. Vemos que se va al fracasar. Nos da miedo de empezar por envidia de un demás al fracasar. Comenzar de nuevo, la espalda te brindará. La vida es un largo camino.
This is a record you can't find any information about anywhere on the internet. At least I haven't been able to find anything. So
Justin Peters asked, is it on VIC?
it's on Mac,
Okay.
MAG.
So then I come to Hit Wombat because Mac is one of my favorite labels from Peru. You have a large collection of this label, Thomas?
A large collection of 3 records.
So maybe that's large. I don't know. Maybe you're the only person in the world who has 3 records of them.
They're actually 7.5 inch big.
It's bigger than
So that was Peruvian.
yeah. Peruvian Psych. It's
Crazy.
I bought it from a guy, and it should be mega rare. Like you can't find anything on it. You can. I know nobody who has seen a copy of this before.
Nice. And we even was able to listen to it. And now that's amazing, I think. Yeah.
I think people. There's a lot of people who collect music like this, and
Yeah.
they would be really interesting in a copy like this. It's really expensive, so it's not like a cheap record. It's,
I can imagine.
When you consider like Richard James here, he wrote what a lot of us must have thought when we heard you playing this. Yeah, no surprise that people are collecting this, since it really reminds of the Beatles.
yeah, it's definitely has.
He even gave us a little translation, Thomas. It's about a guy who wants to start anew. Who doesn't want every now and then, right?
It's funny though that people would call that psych, because for me it sounded like especially the beginning, it sounded like 60s Italian crooner pop.
No, I don't agree.
It did. For my ears, it was very, very, lovers, Latin lover.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, I hadn't that. I was reminded of this Moody blues, or what was it? With the voice and the tone of the voice.
Well, it was definitely not a bad boy song, huh?
No, it wasn't. And it doesn't have to be always.
No. But it's just that when you say psych, I set my expectation somewhere, and it went somewhere very different than what I expected.
Stunty, you have something similar.
I think it's just an example of what a 7-inch.
What did you say, Thomas?
I was just saying that it's, for me, it's an example of when you collect a 7-inch. It's something you can't find anywhere. So.
It's true. This is exactly the kind of tunes you would find on a jukebox, because you'd be at the bar by the sea, and you want to chat the girls, you want to dance, and it's romantic. Like, that's exactly the kind of like 50s, 60s stuff I would expect to find in a place like that.
Very interesting comment from Jose Moreno Ran. It's called Balada, not Psych, because he is not from the area, but he knows a lot about South America. And so Balada, Stunty, have heard about Balada?
No. But the name is more in line with my perception of the. Even in Germany in the 60s, you had singers like that, because you had like the strings arrangement behind, like
Ricky Shane. The guy is called Ricky Shane. Jose, does it come from ballads? Because just put on another letter and you have ballads. Balada, ballads? Maybe.
I think, Christopher, he says he thinks it sounded like early US psych. Psych collectors will just find any excuse to buy records. Huh? you will, like, yes, it's psych. I can have it. You like it, so it's psych.
Yeah, so romantic ballads, South American, Peruvian ballads.
And there is a time for that, for sure.
There is always a time for that. Stunty, shall I squeeze you in? Because Thomas already has put up the next 7.
I have something completely different.
Of course you have.
The music is... No, but sometimes I react, but now I react in... Yeah. It's more like, because a theme tonight, like so people know we never decide a theme nowadays with the stream. And we kind of find, if there's a theme for the Michael stream there, we find it along the way. And my theme tonight, I've noticed, has been the object, because the music on that record is great, but it's more, I play it more to show the object.
Oh. Yeah. I thought so. Okay, I think we get the idea. This is really wonderful. That's beautiful. Andy, okay, thank you. You know, and again, I know why my favorite song from John Cage is 430.
So this was Larry Austin, who's the editor of this magazine. This magazine who had 11 issues. I have 4 of them. There's actually only 9 because 3 of them had records, 2 10-inches, and they counted double. So if you are good at math, it's only 9. So you saw the content a little bit. I skipped through a little bit. This is a magazine from the early 70s dedicated to the music writing of experimental music.
Yeah.
So it's basically documenting the different ways experimental avant-garde composers were actually writing their music. And so the package, I just imagine, like, that was a very limited audience back then, even more so than now. They managed to do about 1,200
You think
copies.
the audience grow from 2 to 4?
Yeah. No, but like, for example, here, this one is really funny. Look at the cover.
What you showed, the design of it was stunning and really.
And you see, like, here, some silver, but just look at this concept. This one is amazing. So this is how you write music.
Okay.
You just use a machine gun for the notes.
Sounds familiar, yeah.
But just
Great.
to imagine the production values of how they managed to make this. Well, that's where the story gets even more interesting. This one, fur music. So this one includes fake fur, pieces of fur that you can use to
Almost Soviet France.
Yeah, like, so you make your, let me show you, your fur keyboard that
Nice. This is amazing stuff. Thomas, are you aware of this series of this magazine? Wow.
I never seen them before.
That's
wonderful.
very rare.
I can imagine.
The thing, I think there's what's also interesting is, like, most of the tracks there are premieres, world premieres, first recordings of some of the biggest pieces of avant-garde music, like I'm Sitting in a Room by Alvin Lucier. I'm sitting in a room. First version ever recorded is there. But so the whole thing is, I think there's a CD, a double CD that compiles these. But it's only when you hold them that you realize how cool they are. Like this, you didn't know you wanted them until you really see them.
I can imagine something that this way of presenting it gives a huge amount of value to it. That's for sure. Yeah.
And then the kicker is that, so imagine how much it must have costed to make these, with different formats of pages inside and all that, and the different inks, plastic, different types of printing, and having records in some of them. So of course they must have lost money to make them, right?
It depends on the price.
Well,
I can imagine,
it was pretty cheap. And they didn't lose, like considering the package, I can't find it, but like the thing is that it was revealed in the 90s. They disclassified it. Basically, this was stealth financed by the FBI.
What the?
The FBI injected money in it without saying it was them, so they could have access to listings of who was into that kind of stuff in the late 60s, early 70s in the US. Monitoring the artists of the extreme avant-garde who would deconstruct the nuclear family. That's the only way this was possible to happen.
This is crazy.
It is.
Wow. That's exciting.
I started to hunt them in the late 90s. I've only managed to get 4 of them, but the more essential ones, thankfully. And they used to go for...
I like Ed Topos. Good
and
idea.
Ed is a musician.
Good idea.
So I thought this would be something. I was talking earlier with a friend who sometimes watches us here, Christophe from the UK, who's a designer, and I was showing them to him, and I thought like, oh, I should show this to the extended family, because
but there's a question for you, Stantje, and I really would love to hear the answer. Does that mean that the FBI now has a file on you?
There will soon when I go to the US, if I do, but no, but back then, you understand, it was a different time. You were in the aftermath of Edgar G. Hoover. They had their ways. 68 had just happened. You had the Vietnam War and all that. Everything that was...
But this leads to the next question. Does that mean, are you sure that the FBI isn't behind you?
Well,
and thanks you for those deep and rich information. Yeah, I can agree. Although I didn't like the song at all, but hey, who cares?
I mean, you would like I played the guy who was the editor, Larry Austin, a composer from Texas. He has very few recordings on vinyl. I think he's still alive. There was recently a retrospective of a label called Irida, also from Texas, where he has his only solo album. But the electronic music is done. Like, I mean, this was done, what we heard was done in the late 60s.
Mm-hmm.
And it doesn't sound like someone experimenting. It sounds like someone who's building something. Like that the sounds are very carefully created and chosen. And
Jose says that he died in 2018.
There you go. He was an amazing guy. Like the stuff he managed to do to document, it is invaluable. These records and magazines are invaluable pieces of. Like in my collection, I sometimes forget a little bit about them, but like, come on. Like,
yeah, amazing. And how many of the 9 do you have?
I have 4.
4. See, maybe contact the FBI. You need the other 5.
There were like 15 years ago, and there were a few stock copies that were flying around for dealers.
What do you think? How many did they do? What do you think?
Oh, they did 1,200.
1,200?
We know for a fact that the last one had a printing of 1,200. We don't know if they had, the ones before had more or less. Mm-hmm. I think they had less, but I'm not sure.
Usually the number one has double the usual.
Usually, but like this is very specific. I mean, this was literally a publication that was collecting and documenting the ways of writing, not just composing, but writing, like music sheets of experimental music.
Yeah. Thomas, get us back on Earth.
Oh, come on.
No, that wasn't meant mean. That was a compliment.
I think I changed. I found another from Peru, but I'll change to this one instead.
Okay.
This is one of my favorite labels from Italy. Roman Record Company, RRC. And yeah, this one is this one. I'm sure Stanley knows a lot about this one.
Not a lot, but I know that record. Yeah, I've been after it. I'm after it.
I can tell you where I can find it now.
I'm not sure.
Yeah, this is cool stuff. Yeah. And again, maybe one day when the time is right, we should do another library wall of records with a specific topic, because that was one of my favorites. And these library records are, and you really need a lot of help when it comes to library, because as you stated and Stanti stated, there is also not so cool stuff on it, and you never can tell. You never can tell. If you pick the wrong one, you get polka.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You get national anthems by a brass band.
But
There's
what we are looking for is this kind of stuff. Yeah, I agree, Douglas Gilbert. That's true. It's a little bit Carnival of Souls. That's true. Yeah.
Eerie, yeah.
Yeah. But you know, it has a perfect mixture of being out there, getting back to you, and helping you through it. I don't know how to put it better. This really catches you, in my opinion. Typical Italian library record, right, Slanti?
No, not typical. I think. How, Thomas? Like, how long are the songs? Like the song you played there. I think this one has a little bit of longer songs than usual, but maybe I'm wrong.
On that regard, okay. On that regard, yeah. Okay.
On side B, there's only 3 tracks. They're like it's 7-8 minutes long, and on side A, they're like 3-4 minutes without track.
And you could hear the music, the way it took its time. Like, you can't do like a 1 minute 20 long song with this kind of atmosphere. It doesn't really work, and which means it's not the usual library soundtrack. It's more like it's closer to what we used to, which is also.
Yeah, I was stating the kind of music, but of course you are right when it comes to the length of the song.
Because like one of the big defining aspects of library soundtracks is usually you have a bunch of short tracks. That's that's very unusual to have 3 tracks on one side on the library record. Like, that's almost like maybe the only one.
Probably not the only one.
But because it goes kind of against the concept of a library record. Since you want to give as many opportunities, potential, the producers to pay you. The more tracks you send them, the more chance they will be using it. Some of it.
So, as an artist, you only got paid when it got used. Anywhere?
It depends on the contract you had. Sometimes they were just like being paid for the session and had to be okay with forgetting that they were behind the music, which was easy back then because they would probably never see and hear these records and music ever again. Since what do you think, Thomas? I would think that most good musicians who were partaking in that industry, they were probably thinking that the guys who were paying them were fools.
What kind of a question is it?
I'm not sure about that, because I think a lot of them, what I used them for, because I made I think I made like 2,000 commercials in my year of working in the film industry. And we always look through stuff like this to find tracks. And then it's true, for commercial, you need a short track to cover everything. That's why a lot of them are really short.
Absolutely. But first, you did these commercial in what decade?
I did them since for the last 30 years.
So so you started in the 90s, and I think I'm not saying that they were correct on the artists, but I'm thinking that they were thinking, these guys, by contract, they do very few copies of these records. Like, fat chance that anyone is going to use it. Like, for me, it's just an afternoon of playing with my friends and getting some money. Or the other paradigm, the artist is the guy who has the label. He's doing the whole business together, which was very common in France back then. So a lot of the library soundtracks were run by the guys who were doing the music, hence why they had so many different names. Same in Italy for some, like Piero Emiliani. He's also Rodi. I mean, he's like at least seven different artists
How many library records did Ennio Morricone do?
About, if you count the ones in the box that you have, Michael, that he shares with Pietro Grossi, I think, the 5 ones there, and if you don't count the ones where he has 1 or 2 tracks in a compilation with others, he has less than 10.
Okay.
About 10 or 12. Yeah, 10 or 12. And I have all of them.
Are you aware of that, Stunty Thomas? Pretty Things did cool library records under the name Electric Banana.
No, I wasn't aware of that.
Thanks for sharing, Magwell.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's a good pop band.
Yeah, and Brian Burnett made a fortune from 1 track on KPM.
Yeah.
Do you know the track, Stunty?
Yeah. I mean, it was used in the UK. I mean, like Brian Bennett is the guy behind. He's probably the one who has the most amount of releases on KPM. KPM, do you know the label, Michael?
I know the Porcelain.
So KPM has every cover has exactly the same design with one variation.
That's not uncommon.
Yeah, but they are even worse than the others. So basically, you got
different colors. Okay, that's okay.
No. Yeah, they have like only one thin white frame, and then an olive green plain visual, like nothing, just olive green and a KPM letters. No other information. You have to go look on the back. Then they did a second series where the color is not olive green but terracotta. But other than that, and nothing, no variation, and there are hundreds of them, hundreds. They have some of the coolest ones and a lot of the most boring ones as well.
Okay.
Back in the beginning of the craze for libraries, you could find a lot of them, and I remember guys like wanting to build a complete KPM collection, and we were like kind of laughing at them because like that meant they had like mostly like horrible, boring music. But yeah.
Stan, do you have library for us or something different?
Something.
I think the most famous one is 1024.
Sounds like a movie score.
Pois kuljen pääni painaen ja itken kanssa pilvien. On harmaa tie, joka luota rakkaan vie. Nyt toinen hänet saanut on. Läpi kyynelten näen tyhjyyden, mistään kuulu ei laulu lintujen. En enää milloinkaan luokses käydä voi. Tuuli viedä saa kaiken entisen, mitä ollut ei. Pois kuljen pääni painaen.
Tchaikovsky turned into a 60s Finnish crooner. I find that amazing. But
it is in a way, and it's, you know what, it's quite beautiful.
It's beautiful. It's a bit surprising. There are a lot of cool songs on this. This is on the on Love Records again. And I remember one time I found this in a garbage bin with a bunch of Finnish records. And I took them all, and I kept about like 6-7 of them. And this was one of them. But you gotta love the complete, like, the design of
The
this.
whole package. No, and
What-
it was beautiful, but it's from
What? What is this?
but when you go with the name, Juha Saavi says, yes, that's Finnish music I'm trying to avoid.
Yeah.
And the name, it comes from a high authority.
But so the guy behind all these, the producer, is Eero Koivistoinen, who's like a very, very famous Finnish jazz musician and arranger. So here, you got a lot of his compositions, but also Elton John, unfortunately.
So you still have you finally have a record that is connected. Yeah. See, I knew
It was
somewhere it has to be.
Yeah. I have a Finnish cover, a crooner Finnish cover of Elton John.
So now it's out in the world that you are an Elton John.
Come on, Thomas, when you see a record like that,
I won't listen to it.
you won't? Even when you see like this kind of like this makes no sense stuff?
Yeah, I would, but I would guess I have 1,000 looking like this, sounding bad. So,
But I agree with Justin Peters. It says a lot about the people that they put a cow on the front and the beautiful woman on the back.
It actually does. But again, like this is the kind of record, like I understand what Thomas is saying, but you always got to look because like it's written there in almost every track. Eero Koivistoinen, and I'm sure you know the name at least, Thomas. You've seen his name. Like he's a session musician on so many good like Scandinavian records.
yeah, I heard the name before. I can't
Yeah.
remember exactly what it is, but yeah. If I knew the name, I will of course listen to it. But there's a lot of records looking like that.
Yeah.
That you need to have good.
The cow in specific or the woman on the back. No, do you know, Stanti Thomas is only into records that has the woman on the front. If Thomas has one rule, that's the rule.
Or a lion in the front.
Okay. Give us the line of
Roberto Muti. Robert Muti.
The whole record is amazing, right, Thomas?
It's one of those records where you have a favorite track all the time. It changes, but there's always one you're looking forward to hear, and this is the one I fall in love with at the moment. But I would say his records are always worth a listen. You never know what you get.
Yeah, but they're also worth something else.
Oh, it's not that terrible, Stunty.
No, but
280, 300 for a very good copy. So
still,
yeah, I'm on Stunty. It's 2024, not 1980.
I love that record.
Right, so yeah. Juha Sarin has a very interesting comment. I wanna discuss it very briefly. Finnish music from the 60s was quite isolated from the rest of the world, like Finland in general at that point. Would be great to hear some music from Finland, like Arpa. It out. Can someone say something to Arpa?
Yeah, wait. I have a record somewhere from them. But
do you know Arpa, Thomas, or do you know records from the 60s from Finland?
I think we in one of the sessions we played. I think there was like 4 or 5 tracks from the 60s from Finland.
Okay, cool. We have to do this again because I'm starting to forget those. And I really hope that you start to forget that you played them so that we can hear them again.
Yeah, I can't remember anymore what I played and what I didn't.
Yeah, that's good. Trust me. That's good. You found something, Stunty?
Yeah, not the one I thought, but I can show you some Finnish records from that time. Like it's true that they have a specific air to them. This one looks like a jazz record. It's not really. I mean, the design, it looks like a Miles Davis record in a way. But this one is folk. This one is funny because, okay, the budget went through. The whole budget was taking that picture under a bridge in Paris.
Because they all had to go to Paris.
Yeah, and I mean,
how do you know it's a bridge from Paris?
I mean, come on.
It could be a bridge in Helsinki.
No. That's Paris. You if you know Paris, you recognize it. And
maybe it was a holiday photo that they took.
More cows, see?
Finally, more cows. But the nice girl is next to the cow now.
But see, when you think about Aki Kaurismäki and you see this, like it makes sense, huh?
It makes total sense. You're right.
Like that they would, that the sense of humor kind of.
You are right. Not everything Stunty says it's all right. It's correct. I agree. I don't remember.
That means you don't remember the 10-inch albums of Miles Davis from the 50s. They have designs like that.
Okay, Stunty, you got me again. Thanks. Thank you. Mario says that Finland is still isolated. Never met a person from Finland, never seen Finnish restaurants or anything made there. You probably saw the director, Stunty, there just quoted. Here in Düsseldorf, okay, shall I say that? But I met 1 or 2 Finnish girls, and I won't forget.
In a good way or bad way?
In a good way. In a good way.
Oh, well. I had a Finnish girlfriend, and it's very mixed. And she was very Finnish, but it's not all about cows, huh? It's not all about that.
It's not.
Well, we're driving through Wiltshire. Very nice countryside, sky, ground, all that sort of thing. Natural marriage of natural resources. I'm looking out the window because I don't come from that part of the world, and I said, "What's that over there?" And it was sort of a sort of low grey concrete thing. It was all surrounded by fields, really nice trees, but there was this sort of low, like a sort of a large square of concrete, like the foundation to a building that hadn't been built. But it had little walls, about a foot high or something, would look like that, maybe 2 foot high, 2 or 3 foot high. And in fact, it was a sort of top of it, and it was a sort of flat roof. And I thought, oh, I see. And then I pointed as a car got past it. I said, "What was that?" And the country person who was with me said, "Oh, that's where they keep pigs." I thought, "Oh, yes, I see. That's where they keep pigs." And the sun was shining down, and grass was green, and it was all very lovely driving the country. And I suddenly thought that what that building must have been like from the inside. Pigs in there. Pigs in there. Pigs in there. Pigs in there. In there. Pigs. In there. Pigs. I wanna live in there. Pigs. Huddled up in there. Pigs. Huddled up in there. Pigs. In there. In the dark. In there. A day like this. Living in there. Pigs.
Thomas and Michael, do you recognize who this is? The voice.
No, but I really like it.
So this is Robert Wyatt, a one-off track on the amazing, talking about series of 7 inches, now talking about series of 12 inches compilations. The recommended records quarterly, RER. This is volume number 3 of volume 1. I have a bunch of them. And they feature a lot of like only unreleased stuff, exclusive stuff, by artists from the avant-garde, from pop, from kind of in between. From when I say pop, I mean Steve Moore, jazz, experimental music, and these records.
This isn't a recent series, isn't it?
No, this is from the, and you see these are seal screened with very cool ink. Yeah, this is this costed £6.50 when this was released, and I think it's I'm sure Ed Topo will tell us exactly when it was from because I can't find it there, but I think it must have been the early mid 80s.
Cool, very cool.
And that track by Robert Wyatt is amazing. Basically, he's I don't know if you listen to the text. He's traveling through the countryside, and he's seeing like a big factory, and someone tells him this is where they have the pigs, and he's like, pigs in there, like because he basically did the music for a movie for animal rights around the same time. Music is very it's not easy to listen. It's not, in my opinion, it's not it's his most difficult album to listen to, but this you get like a different way to approach it. You got also tracks by guys from Hawkwind. It's
Hawkwind. Okay.
Yeah. It's just wonderful compilations that sometimes you used to find them for super cheap. They usually have a magazine inside of them as well. Nowadays, it's getting less and less easy to find them cheap. But it can happen, and they're always at the very least interesting.
Thomas, are you aware of this series? I was not until
No,
now.
I haven't seen those before. No.
Thanks for sharing again, Stanti. So it's this time of the evening where we have to say, Thomas gives you the last track of the evening, and I think today Stanti has the take for the last track tonight. Last week it was you, Thomas. This week it's the honor of Stanti. So what will be your good night track from Copenhagen?
It will be a record that is good from start to end.
Okay.
It's made in Germany.
Of course it is. Düsseldorf?
No, not Düsseldorf. It doesn't say it. No. It's a jazz record, and again from one of my favorite jazz musicians. I'll just start it up.
That was quite something.
We got it all. 1969.
Nice one. German record. Interesting. Which label?
But it's recorded in something called Lindström Studio. That sounds Swedish.
That sounds quite northern, yeah.
Yeah.
Santi, you want to say something?
And do you like this record even more when you learn that it's actually not the German label, but the French label, and it's the German subsidiary of Vogue Records that was started in the 60s? Basically, Vogue was a US label that ceased to exist before vinyl. And a French guy bought the trademark and started it as Vogue Disc.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a jazz label, but it became like also they released like pop and all kinds of stuff, but mostly like 60s groovy pop and jazz. And I think there was also like a British like subsidiary and a German. But yeah, I have that record. It's funny because for years, like I bought that like in a lot, like in the late 90s. I had no idea what it was, and for the longest time, I didn't listen to it, and I thought it was like a rock band called. Yeah, I thought it was the Seeds.
The Seeds, exactly. Yeah, of course.
And like years later, when I know about jazz, like, wait, Saib Shihab, like, oh, come on. It was a nice surprise. Yeah.
Thomas, can you answer Betsy's question? How much a first pressing of it might be nowadays?
400.
Yeah, have a look. Yeah, I would guess like 400.
But there's a cheap reissue of that as well.
The reissue has the color as the inside. This one, the purple.
Okay. But if Betsy asks for the first pressing, which she should, I think this is one record you should get the first pressing and not the reissue.
I would tend to agree.
Thank you, Stan.
And I think the price will only go up on those.
Of course.
So 400 is actually one of the cheap ones from from that area.
Yeah. Amazing, an amazing artist. You know, you got him to me, Thomas, when you had the generosity and gave me this $7 billion record of him, when I could compare it to the Sam Records reissue. Oh my God, this is such a great record! Wow. Only one for sale. Okay, which condition, Christopher?
No, he didn't say that there is the only one, but that there is one for sale at that price.
Okay.
Or so I understand, at least.
If he said for me one for sale means there's only one for sale, but you might be right, Stunty. Whatever. Stunty, you have the incredible honor of giving us probably, you know, on your Mint VG Plus is quite okay. You have the great honor of the last song, probably the last song of the evening. You know, you never know how it is with us.
First time I do that, but usually, like it happened twice before, but Thomas managed to hijack that every time. But okay, let's end it on a pensive way. A record that a recent record, an archival record that it stays on my mind, and the more I listen to it, the more I bow to it, to the beauty of it, which is it's a record from an artist who's not a musician originally, but she uses sound and voice.
I would swim the coldest oceans. I would walk in burning sands. I would crawl swim across the desert, this ocean with my heart. I would walk my knees. I would swim, I would crawl this ocean across the desert. I would walk with my heart held in my hand. I would crawl, swim across the desert, this ocean with my heart. I would walk my knees. I would swim, I would crawl this ocean across the desert. I would walk with my heart held in my hand. I would crawl, swim across the desert, this ocean with my heart. I would walk my knees. I would swim, I would crawl this ocean across the desert. I would walk with my heart held in my hand. I would crawl, swim across the desert, this ocean with my heart. I would walk my knees. I would swim, I would crawl this ocean across the desert. I would walk with my heart held in my hand. I would crawl, swim across the desert, this ocean with my heart. I would walk my knees. I would swim, I would crawl this ocean across the desert. I would walk with my heart held in my hand. I would crawl, swim across the desert, this ocean with my heart. I would walk my knees. I would swim, I would crawl this ocean across the desert. I would walk with my heart held in my hand. I would crawl, swim across the desert, this ocean with my heart. I would walk my knees. I would swim, I would crawl this ocean across the desert. I would walk with my heart held in my hand. I would crawl, swim across the desert, this ocean with my heart.
Very, very beautiful. Nice one.
Disorientating music, like you kind of get drunk on it if you allow it to go on. And yeah, I love this when you drop that like in a techno mix or something like that in the dance floor. People get completely taken by it.
I can imagine. When did this album came out, Stanti?
So it was released, it says 2021. I think it was actually released in late 2022. It was the first release on that label, Info, and it got so delayed that a second volume of her work actually was released before that on that same label. And it's not nearly as good as this. This is, yeah, I don't think that we'll ever top this. This record is, I had no idea who she was. I just heard like a clip on Bandcamp and thought, this sounds like something really special. And
the whole album in that manner?
Yeah, it's only like voice, singing arrangements of voice. And there's a lot of, it goes in different directions. But you have this quality of like she will repeat sentences where she mixes the words, and because of the overdubbing, it creates this whole like disorientation effect and effect, and yet that you kind of like suddenly can get drunk on this. I find this extraordinary, and I do, because I bought this like 2 years ago, and it's something I still regularly get drawn to. And
does it remind you a little bit of Meredith Monk?
Not really. I mean, of course, Meredith Monk is about vocals and all that, but this is way more. Meredith Monk is about performance as well. This is more about creating an arrangement that is like, this is more psychoacoustics than than music. And at first, I didn't know if this was going to be musical.
But it is. It was. It was for sure.
Yeah.
Gentlemen, thank you so much for those beautiful tracks tonight. We will see us next week, right?
Hopefully.
And
Next
thank
week,
you all in the gallery.
yeah. This will not be on next week.
Wait, I'll make you big. Okay, we start with it, or it will be in between?
In between.
In between.
A few things for next week, and this one as well.
Yeah. Okay, so can't wait for next week.
Two good tracks.
Thanks for the,
Thomas.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, thank you all for attending. See you next week. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did.